Hey guys, Brian here from Better Chess Training, and in today's video, I'm going to give you several tips on how to maximize your use of Chessable. Okay, before we get started on the tips, I just wanted to give you a quick summary of what Chessable is for those of you who aren't familiar with it. It is a web-based educational system, I guess is the best way to say it, using several learning and memory techniques, primarily spaced repetition learning. I highly recommend it. I've been using it for quite a while, and um, I encourage you to check it out. But with the tips, you'll see some of the features as we go through. So let's get started. Okay, tip number one is to keep up with your reviews. So with Chessable, you will, and you can see here with the green button, I have 13 variations to review. And this is where the spaced repetition learning comes in. And I'm not going to go into that too much. You can Google it, or maybe I'll make a separate video on it. But basically, Chessable will bring up what is due to review. And the more you get it correct, the longer the interval between each time you review it. And I think their longest interval right now is about 6 months, but it is always an algorithm that they are looking at and looking to improve. So you want to keep up with your reviews. And you would click this green button, and then you would go into the reviews. A couple of reasons for this. The first reason is that it optimizes the retention of your learning. If you wait too long, then you'll forget it, and then you essentially have to relearn it again. If you do it too quickly, then you're not really challenging yourself, and there's some research that the more you challenge your ability to recall the information, the more you will remember it. So that's reason number one. The second reason is motivational. If you keep up with your reviews, you'll keep up your streak. As you can see here, I have a 136-day streak, and it rewards you. So this gamification is part of the system as well. And then the other part is, if we go down here to my time planner, if you wait, for example, if I did not go on chessable.com and do any of my reviews for a week, I would have 714 variations to review. And that would be very daunting, and I would probably get intimidated. Now, there are ways around that, which I'll talk about a little later. But the idea is if you keep up with it daily, and I check it maybe 2 or 3 times a day. I usually do it before every one of my study sessions. So in the morning when I wake up, I will clear out all of my review items. And then around lunchtime, I do some tactics. And so I will check my reviews there. And usually that takes about 5 minutes or so. And then at night, before I do an evening study session, I'll take 10 minutes or so to if there's any to review items to clear out there. So you want to keep up with your reviews. The second tip is to make sure you are taking advantage of the analysis board feature here on Chessable to make sure that you understand the positions and variations that you're studying. So one mistake that I think I know I've made in the past, and I'm guessing some other users have made, is that when they get a repetition wrong on their during the review, they'll just skip it and move on to the next one. And part of it is human nature. You want to kind of get past the pain of getting it wrong and find one that you know well. But it's very important to make sure you understand it, because that repetition is going to come up again, and then you're going to need to know why so you don't make the same mistake twice. Because that's going to be a drag in terms of how many repetitions you have to do, with the principle that the more you get it wrong, the more frequently you have to see it. So it's better to learn it really well and then study it. So I just want to give you a quick example here. This is from one of the items I created in studying the game Reshevsky versus Fine, Avro 1938. This position came up. I thought it was very instructive, so I included it in my Master Games ebook. So here, e5 is played, and bishop takes e5. And then the key move here, now, knight takes e5 is not a bad move. And I've made the mistake before if I'm not paying attention. But the key move here is b4. And the idea here is that I'm gaining a tempo as well as advancing this b pawn. But what you would do, so this is the actual problem, is go down here and click on the analysis board. And this is where you can actually move the pieces. So here we are on the analysis board. And here it will go to the position that you're at. So this is where you can see the differences between the different moves. So for example, here we want to stay in contact with this bishop, and therefore, for example, we could see very clearly here if I take on c4 that knight takes e4 just wins a piece, right? And again, that's just a simple example. But if he stays in contact here with queen to d4, now we can take it, and after the queen takes, play c3. And then we can see here, and these are, again, you can move these around just like you would your regular chessboard or any of your other programs to move the pieces around. So that analysis board feature is something that will just pop open a new window, and that's what it did here. Make sure you take advantage of it. Whenever you get one of your items wrong, make sure that you understand why, and if you have to move the pieces, use the analysis board. The third tip is for everyone, but especially for those of you just starting out in Chessable. Chessable is a lot of fun, at least in my experience. And what I've done in the past, and hopefully you can learn from my mistake, is that I went crazy and I studied too much. What I mean is, for example, when I first got the woodpecker method, I enjoyed doing the tactics, and I would do like 50 problems a day. The problem with that is that, as we talked about earlier, there's going to be a lot of drag because you're going to have a lot of reviews. So you need to balance what you're studying with your ability to do the repetitions. So the idea here is that maybe your input, the amount that you're studying, new stuff that you're studying, may be a little less than if you didn't use Chessable and spaced repetition. But the theory is that your retention of that material will not be as good. And if we're looking at long-term learning and long-term improvement of our chess, we want to make sure that we retain the information that we learn. So there's no strict guidelines that I'm going to try to give you, but the idea is, and as you can see here, I love chess books. So I have a lot of these, but you can see some of them, like the woodpecker method. I've completed 778. But some of these books I kind of take a little bit at a time, like Small Steps to Giant Improvement by Sam Shanklin. Excellent book. But I only do a couple positions every few days because it's a lot more strategy, a lot more complex than doing tactical problems. So I give myself time to understand it and also let those reviews, the subsequent reviews of the material, sink in a little bit before I add new material. Okay, this next tip is to learn when it's useful to pause your learning a specific book. Okay, so one of the features here, as I said, as you learn things, Chessable will go through its algorithm and it will bring up items for you to review. Now, sometimes, whether that be because work demands or family demands, or just that you're getting a little burned out, you're going to experience times, no matter how much you enjoy chess, where you need a little bit of a break. Now, instead of letting the repetitions, the review items build up, and then you just don't want to come back to Chessable, which happened to me for a little while actually when I first started using Chessable. Uh, you can pause your learning in specific books. I'll just give you one of my examples. As you can see here, I love chess books, and I've been reading a lot of these chess books and learning from them here on Chessable. But we look at this specific one, 1001 Chess Exercises for Beginners. I went through most of this book. I'm almost done. I should probably just go ahead and finish it off. But what happened was I got a little burned out, and also because I was doing some reviews on some of the other books and wanting to focus on some other learning, I decided that I needed to pause because a lot of at the time about 80% of the review items were from this book because it was like one of those cases where I was doing about 30, 40 new problems a day, which of course bring those back for review. And so what I did was I paused my learning. So if I go into one of these chapters, let's just look at this mate in one here. I pause all variations. Now, if I ever want to start studying them again, I won't lose any of my progress. I could just say unpause my variations. Okay, and so with this, I'm currently in my reviews. None of these problems will um, will come up in my reviews. And so sometimes you need to do that. Now, some reasons for this might be, again, just getting a little burned out, or maybe you're spending a lot of time with work and such. So learn to. Sometimes it's necessary to pause learning in specific books so that you can focus on other things as well as keep up with your review repetitions. The next tip is to make sure you are regularly reviewing the difficult moves page. So, what Chessable does, and I think it's a great thing, is that as you're reviewing these on a daily basis, it will record which ones you're having trouble with. And what you can do here is you can go to the difficult move page and you can actually look at all of the moves you get wrong. Okay. And here you could sort it by accuracy. You could also sort it by the number of mistakes. And then you could look at the key here is to look at the reason behind it. So uh, here I got this wrong 17 times. So if I click on it, I can scroll up and it's from my opening repertoire. And the opening repertoire move here is bishop to e2. And my most frequent mistake is knight b to d2. So in this particular case, I have to determine whether or not this is a transposition that's acceptable or if there's a reason I'm playing bishop to e2 in this particular variation. Now the answer is that, and what you would do is you can click here on to actually go to the variation. If I move back here, the idea here is that bishop to e2 and after bishop to g7 by black, white wants to castle. So knight b to d2 is not a bad move, but in my understanding of this opening or the way I want to play this opening, I want to make sure I'm castling quickly. Now, if we go back to the difficult moves list, there might be other situations. For example, here, um, this is not from my opening repertoire, but it is from the Sam Shanklin's book. I can click on it and again see where I'm making my mistakes. So in this particular position, uh, the correct move is queen to f3, and my most frequent mistake is bishop takes f6 later, which is actually later in the variation. So what I could do here, and I'm not going to do it right now just to keep the video from getting too long, is I can go to this and then go to the analysis board and try to understand why. Actually, I can click on this, for example, and I could see what the author has written, or I can go to the analysis board with this button and maybe do some analysis of my own. So the idea here is to review the difficult moves and try to see where you are making your mistakes and see whether or not you need to either study it further or maybe add an alternate move that may be just as good that's one of the frequent mistakes you're making. Those were some tips to maximize your potential learning from Chessable. I hope you take advantage of them. If you haven't been to chessable.com, really, you got to check it out. Free to use. There is a premium version, but a lot of features that you can take advantage of right now. Over here, I also have a link to a video with some other chess tools that I use, both web-based as well as software you can download. So check out that video. Appreciate you watching, and I'll see you over there in that video. Check it out.